was the rescue of the innocent, the stretching out of a saving hand to those unfortunate creatures who had fallen into the net spread out for them by their fellow men, by those who, godless, lawless, penniless themselves, had sworn to exterminate all those who clung to their belongings, to their religion, and to their beliefs. The Scarlet Pimpernel did not take it upon himself to punish the guilty. His care was solely of the helpless and of the innocent. For this aim he risked his life every time that he set foot on French soil. For it he sacrificed his fortune and even his personal happiness, and to it he devoted his entire existence. Moreover, whereas the French plotter is said to have had confederates even in the Assembly of the Convention, confederates who were sufficiently influential and powerful to secure his own immunity, the Englishman, when he was bent on his errands of mercy, had the whole of France against him. The Baron de Batz was a man who never justified either his own ambitions or even his existence. The Scarlet Pimpernel was a personality of whom an entire nation might justly be proud. End of foreword. Dorado by Baroness Orczy. Recording by Helen Stainer. Chapter 1. In the Théâtre National. And yet, people found the opportunity to amuse themselves, to dance and to go to the theatre, to enjoy music and open-air cafes and promenades at the Palais Royal. New fashions in dress made their appearance, milliners produced fresh creations, and jewellers were not idle. A grim sense of humour, born of the very intensity of ever-present danger, had dubbed the cut of certain tunics tête tranche, or a favourite ragout was called à la guillotine. On 3 evenings only during the past memorable 4.5 years did the theatres close their doors, and these evenings were the ones immediately following that terrible 2nd of September, the day of the butchery outside the Abbaye prison, when Paris herself was aghast with horror, and the cries of the massacred might have drowned the calls of the audience whose hands upraised for plaudits would still be dripping with blood. On all other evenings of these same 4.5 years, the theatres in the Rue de Richelieu, in the Palais Royal, the Luxembourg, and others, had raised their curtains and taken money at their doors. The same audience that earlier in the day had whiled away the time by witnessing the ever-recurrent dramas of the Place de la Révolution, assembled here in the evenings, in filled stalls, boxes, and tiers, laughing over the satires of Voltaire, or weeping over the sentimental tragedies of persecuted Romeos and innocent Juliets. Death knocked at so many doors these days. He was so constant a guest in the houses of relatives and friends that those who had merely shaken him by the hand, those on whom he had smiled and whom he, still smiling, had passed indulgently by, looked on him with that subtle contempt born of familiarity, shrugged their shoulders at his passage, and envisaged his probable visit on the morrow with light-hearted indifference. Paris, despite the horrors that had stained her walls, had remained a city of pleasure, and the knife of the guillotine did scarce descend more often than did the drop scenes on the stage. On this bitterly cold evening of the 27th Nivose, in the 2nd year of the Republic, or as we of the old style still persist in calling it, the 16th of January, 1794, the auditorium of the Théâtre National was filled with a very brilliant company. The appearance of a favourite actress in the part of one of Molière's volatile heroines had brought pleasure-loving Paris to witness this revival of Le Misanthrope, with new scenery, dresses, and the aforesaid charming actress to add piquancy to the master's mordant wit. The Moniteur, which so impartially chronicles the events of those times, tells us under that date that the Assembly of the Convention voted on that same day a new law giving fuller power to its spies, enabling them to effect domiciliary searches at their discretion without previous reference to the Committee of General Security, authorizing them to proceed against all enemies of public happiness, to send them to prison at their own discretion, and assuring them the sum of 35 livres, quote, for every piece of game thus beaten up for the guillotine. Under that same date, the Moniteur also puts it on record that the Théâtre National was filled to its utmost capacity for the revival of the late citoyen Molière's comedy. The Assembly of the Convention having voted the new law which placed the lives of thousands at the mercy of a few human bloodhounds, adjourned its sitting and proceeded to the Rue de Richelieu. Already the house was full when the fathers of the people made their way to the seats which had been reserved for them. An awed hush descended on the throng, as one by one the men whose very names inspired horror and dread filed in through the narrow gangways of the stalls, or took their places in the tiny boxes around. Citizen Robespierre's neatly wigged head